You notice the title of the lesson, Gloom, Despair, and Agony on Me. Those of our generation probably remember that little tune being sung each week on Hee Haw. And when I gave Jennifer the title of the lesson, she said, "Oh, sing that song when you're up there." And I told her, "Well, if I do, I'll probably have an elder on each arm leading me out of the building." And then my wife says, "Don't you do it." So, Jennifer, I weighed the deals. I think you only boss me around 2 days a week, possibly. She bosses me 7, so she wins. So I will not sing the song. You're welcome to look it up on YouTube if you need to hear it. We have a granddaughter I've mentioned several times who's a softball player, and she's playing in a tournament this weekend. And yesterday was one of those days that it just didn't go well. I mean, she didn't hit the ball very well. She made an error or two at shortstop. So I sent her this message. I'm always sending her something. In capital letters, I said, never say die. Keep your head up and stay positive. Softball is one of the most humbling experiences you will ever have. Playing shortstop is a new experience. You have the tools. It just takes hours of practice to get it down. Even a professional shortstop can boot a ball. I have total confidence in you. If you want it bad enough, you will drive coaches crazy, getting them to hit you more grounders and liners. Lobe you, that's love you, but we say lobe. Lobe you and are proud of you, girl, always. Besides, it's just a game. Enjoy it. And then this morning on our drive here, we were listening to the Country Music Countdown. There was a song that came on. I don't know if you've ever heard it, and I'm not going to play it for you or anything, called Tough People. Tough people are made by tough times. And so I sent that to her this morning and told her I loved her and to have a good time. I said, relax, you got this. And so hopefully she'll do fine. But anyhow, enough about my granddaughter. I could tell stories all day. You notice in the reading that was read there in Numbers chapter 21, when things got bad, the people made promises to God, said, if you'll do this, we'll do this. And he did his part, and they were happy. And then after a little while, in verse 4, it's ended with, and the people became impatient. They got upset. They were getting frustrated. They were having that gloom, despair, and agony on me. You took us out here in the middle of nowhere to die. We're going to starve. All those types of things. But we got to remember, in Galatians chapter 6, verse 7 and 8, it says, do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever one sows, he will also reap. One who sows to his own flesh will from flesh reap corruption. But the one who sows to the Spirit will reap the Spirit, or reap from the Spirit, eternal life. As we go through our life, even as Christians, we can get depressed or upset, whatever term you might want to hang on to it. Yet, as Christians, we should never get to that point of frustration. But I know as humans, we all have those poor, poor, pitiful me moments. You know, Connie and I were talking yesterday, and both of us hobbling, getting up from chairs and everything. I said, man, isn't it horrible getting old? And she said, yes, it is. I said, you know, the next comment is usually, but it beats the alternative. But as a Christian, no, it doesn't. The alternative is a whole lot better than being here. That's where all of us as Christians are shooting to be. But as we go through life, we hit those pity party times. We're going to look at about 5 quick points today about doom or gloom, despair, and agony on me. If you look in Numbers chapter 11, Numbers chapter 11, verse 10, you've got Moses leading the children of Israel. Starting in verse 10, Moses heard the people throughout their clans, everyone at the door of his tent, and the anger of the Lord blazed hotly. Moses was displeased. Moses said to the Lord, why have you dealt ill with your servant? And why have I not found favor in your sight that you laid the burden of all this people on me? Did I conceive all these people? Did I give birth that you should say to me, carry them in your bosom as a nurse carries a nursing child, to the land that you swore to their fathers? Where am I going to get meat to feed all this people? For they weep before me and say, give us meat that we may eat. I'm not able to carry all this people alone. The burden is too heavy for me. If you will treat me like this, just kill me at once. If I find favor in your sight, that I may see my wretchedness. Sometimes when we get frustrated, we pray the wrong prayers. I don't care how frustrated I get, I'm not going to ask God to take my life. And I know Moses was under a lot of pressure. I mean, you think about I don't know how many people there were in the pack that were traveling across there. But him to be fully in charge and catching the blame for everything. But notice in verses 16 and 17, God's reply. Then the Lord said to Moses, gather for me 70 men of the elders of Israel, whom you know to be the elders of the people, and officers over them, and bring them to the tent of meeting, and let them take their stand there with you. And I will come down and talk with you there. And I will take some of the spirit that is on you, and put it on them. And they shall bear the burden of the people with you, so that you may not bear it yourself alone. When Moses was the leader, was he really bearing all the burden? Physically, yes, but God was there with him, helping him the whole time. God's always there with us. But sometimes we may, out of frustration, pray the wrong prayers. I've mentioned before, the first time Connie's cancer was here, I prayed and prayed and prayed and still do. But I prayed and prayed and prayed, and I finally listened to what I was praying. I was telling God what to do. You know, I was giving him instructions instead of, it's in your hands, whatever it might be, help me to live with and understand whatever's going to happen. You give me faith. But I had to stop one day. I was standing outside under the carport praying, and I thought, are you listening to yourself? You're bossing God around, and I bet he's chuckling because he's in charge. Next, if you look in Numbers, we were in 21, 4 and 5. As I said, the people whined about, we don't have no food or water. We hate this worthless food we're having to eat, basically. But notice, you read on down to verses 6 and 7. God didn't excuse their talk because they were discouraged. Just like he's not going to excuse us either. In verses 6 and 7, then the Lord sent fiery serpents among the people, and they bit the people, so that the many people of Israel died. And the people came to Moses and said, we have sinned. We have spoken against the Lord and against you. Pray to the Lord that he take away the serpents from us. So Moses prayed for the people. In other words, now they came to their senses and said, wait a minute, we've brought this on ourselves. And then we see in verses 8 and 9, the Lord said to Moses, make a fiery serpent and set it on a pole, and everyone who is bitten when he sees it shall live. So Moses made a bronze serpent and set it on a pole. And if a serpent bit anyone, he would look at the bronze serpent, and they would live. We've got to make sure we're saying the right things. I mean, not only to God, but to people. We don't want to talk ugly to somebody. You know, Connie and I sometimes, we make, well, I was teasing a couple that came in today about having to be friends with Travis and harassing them because the wife was making everybody get certain sitting orders. And I was giving her a hard time about it. And I asked her, are we sitting correctly? And after she said yes and went and sat down, Connie hit me and said, you shouldn't do that. They're visitors. Sometimes I do offend people, and I don't intend to. It's just that my Southwest Oklahoma mouth likes to run. Then if you look in Matthew chapter 11, Matthew 11, starting in verse 2. And by the way, now I'll be in trouble for teasing you from the pulpit. I just want to let you know. In Matthew chapter 11, starting with verse 2. Now when John heard in prison about the deeds of Christ, he sent word by his disciples and said to him, are you the one who is to come, or shall we look for another? Remember, John baptized Jesus. And when he saw Jesus coming, he said, look, the Lamb of God. And now he's sitting in prison thinking, did I do the right thing? Is this the right guy? Did I point out the wrong one? All these types of things that were. So when we're depressed or gloomy, we might think the wrong things. Jesus says, starting in verse 4, go and tell John what you hear and see. The blind receive their sight, and the lame walk. Lepers are cleansed, and the deaf hear. And the dead are raised up, and the poor of good news preached to them. And blessed is the one who is not offended by me. So he said, John, basically, relax. I got this. When we get gloomy, Philippians chapter 4, verse 8 gives us a list of things to think about. Finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things. Focus on the good stuff, even when there's bad stuff going on. Yes, yesterday, sitting there with watching my granddaughter play on the computer, and she booted a hard hit ground ball to shortstop. Oh, Gracie, good grief. And I know she's out there wanting to throw her glove, and because she's very competitive, but she didn't. She stayed positive through the whole situation. So I can't complain about her. I keep reminding her about the example she is, because she and another teammate have started a Bible study, team Bible study that they do one night a week. They're all at their homes on their computers or phones, discussing the Bible with each other. So, that makes me more proud than the softball ability. But the thing is, regardless of how frustrated we might get, we need to always strive to stay positive and think on the right things. Then in Numbers 13, starting in verse 25, at the end of the 40 days, they returned from spying out the land. And they came to Moses and Aaron, to all the congregation of the people of Israel in the wilderness of Paran at Kadesh. They brought back word to them and to all the congregation, and showed them the fruit of the land. They told him, we came to the land which you sent us, and it flows with milk and honey, and this is its fruit. However, the people who dwell in the land or among the cities are fortified and very large. And besides, we saw the descendants of Anak there, and Amalekites dwell in the land of Negev. The Hittites, the Jebusites, and the Amorites dwell in the hill country, and the Canaanites dwell by the sea along the Jordan. But Caleb quieted the people before Moses and said, let us go up at once and occupy it, if we are well able to overcome it. Then the people had gone up with him and said, we are not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we are. So they brought out to the people of Israel a bad report of the land that they had spied out, saying, the land through which we have gone to spy out is a land that devours its inhabitants. And all the people that we saw in it are of great height. And there we saw Nephilim, the sons of Anak, who come from Nephilim. And we seem to be ourselves like grasshoppers. We're little, we're too small, we can't do this. So the people had Joshua and Caleb being positive. God's with us, we can do anything. But the other people saw the wrong thing in their mind. They could picture these great big guys and them way down here going to fight them. We're too small. We can't do it. While Joshua and Caleb saw that with God, we can take on anybody. With God, we can take on anything. As Christians, we need to be sure that we see the right things, even in the gloom and doom. In Numbers 20, verse 7, Moses was no doubt a great man. We look here in chapter 20 of Numbers, starting in verse 7. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, take the staff and assemble the congregation, you and Aaron your brother, and tell the rock before their eyes to yield its water. So you shall bring water out of the rock for them, and give drink to the congregation and their cattle. And Moses took the staff before the Lord as he commanded. Then Moses and Aaron gathered the assembly together before the rock. Now, so far, he's done just right. He's done exactly what God has told him to do. But now notice verse 10. Then Moses and Aaron gathered the assembly together before the rock, and he said to them, Hear now, you rebels, shall we bring water for you out of this rock? And Moses lifted up his hand and struck the rock with his staff twice, and water came out abundantly, and the congregation drank and their livestock. Notice, Moses did part of what he was told. But Moses somewhat took the credit for himself. Basically, he and Aaron, do we have to do this again? And hauled off and hit the rock instead of just simply speaking to the rock. When we're in the gloomy doomies, do we get frustrated and get out of control? I'll admit, sometimes I do. As I've mentioned before, me and inanimate objects do not get along. I mean, zero. Screwdrivers, screws, I'm ready to kill before I get 2 or 3 of them put in. It just, not in me. Inanimate objects. Tim and I were trying to get this put on today, and it kept falling. And he said, well, I was going to put it on this side, and then the mic was pointing down and said up. So, I was fussing with this little old dinky thing. Being inanimate objects. Connie knows to watch me when I'm doing something like that. She becomes my greatest cheerleader. You can do it, Bill. You've gotten this far and haven't done it. You ain't got mad yet. The Mason family, all super handy with stuff like that. Me, I look up the number for the plumber, whoever. I just don't even attempt it. But again, have we ever been guilty of letting frustration take control? I would venture a guess all of us have, to some degree in some form or fashion. But sometimes we get frustrated and we do the wrong things. Then in Philippians chapter 2, 14, 15, do all things without grumbling or disputing, that you may be blameless and innocent, children of God without blemish in the midst of a crooked and twisted generation, among whom you shine as lights in the world. Sometimes when we get to grumbling and disputing or gloomy doomies, we might develop the wrong kind of spirit, wrong kind of attitude that we show others. We are lights. Hebrews 12, verses 14 and 15. Strive for peace with everyone and for the holiness without which no one will see the Lord. See to it that no one fails to obtain the grace of God, that no root of bitterness springs up and causes trouble, and by it many become defiled. Strive for peace. And that means sometimes we're in that gloomy doomies, we've got to take a deep breath and get a grip. And realize, like I told my granddaughter, you got this. You've got the ability to do it. Just do it. And as a Christian, we have the ability to get through the gloomy doomies without being a problem for anyone else or for ourselves. Granted, we all get discouraged at times, but as Christians, we have so many reasons to be encouraged, not discouraged. Because we've got good Christian brothers and sisters to help encourage us. We've got a God that is always there. My granddaughters have all been told, I don't care what time of the night it is, if you wake up and you've had a bad dream, you know my number. Call me. My older son said, no, she won't call you in the middle of the night. I said, I can still whip you. Yes, she can. I said, she can call me anytime, I don't care, just to talk. If she just needs to talk. My phone's open 24/7. She hasn't done it yet, and hopefully she never has to. feel like she needs to. She's never stressed like that. But I want her to know, all of them to know, that all they got to do is get on that laptop, the two little ones, not laptop, what's it called? Notebook. Tablet's what they call it. I'm not computer smart. Get on that tablet, get Granddad's number, and it'll call, and we'll be having a FaceTime chat. The big one can too on her phone. But as we go through our lives as Christians, we need to be sure that we don't let the gloomy doomies get us to start doing wrong things, seeing wrong things, saying wrong things, acting wrong ways. Because we are a light. We're supposed to be a shining light, according to Matthew chapter 5. We're supposed to be bright so people can see God living in us. Sometimes it's a struggle because the gloomy doomies can make us hesitant when we shouldn't be. We ought to be jumping right in there. Just food for thought today. If there's any way we can help you, fixing to have an invitation song. The invitation's open. If you need prayers or you want to be baptized for the remission of sins, then feel free to come forward as we sing. Stand and sing.